Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Community Connection. I'm Robert Day, your host. On the show, we often have very smart people. We have very passionate and compassionate people. Today, we have just some really cool people. Like the cool factor is really high here this morning. You'll see in a minute. But let's check in with our coolest Gen Zer. Taylor the Melvinator. Good morning.
Speaking of cool factor.
There she
Here I
is.
am.
There she is.
Good morning.
Hey, let me ask you a question. Is 60 a big number? Is it like for age? Is 60 is that like really old
Honestly,
for somebody like you?
No, that's like my parents. 60 feels young to me.
Yeah, that helps a lot. That helps a lot.
Come
Yeah.
on. I can't win.
Yeah. Well, somebody just entered their 60th year with us this morning. Good morning.
Is that really true, or did you enter your 61st year on your 60th birthday?
Anyway, you're 60.
I turned 60 today. Yes, I do.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's the nicest you've ever been at the beginning of one of these shows.
Well, forget that then. Let's restart. Can we do the retake on that? How does it feel to be 60?
It's pretty much the same as it did to be 59 in 364 days, but it feels good to be 60. I'm grateful.
Good. Well, we have some young people, today,
young.
right? With the cool
With
factor.
the cool factor. Yeah.
And won't you introduce them?
Okay. Today, Rob and Cassie Pena are here, and Pena is spelled weird, so most people
Thanks, Rob.
say it wrong, right? How do people usually say it? Penha.
People say it however they want to say it, but the proper way to say it is Pena.
Like I said it the proper way.
That's right.
I haven't gotten it right yet. So
Oh,
I
really?
feel bad.
We'll figure it out. We'll work it out.
So Rob and Cassie are a couple. They're married. They have a really cute little baby. And so they also have done a lot of things in the community. And I've known them for quite a while now. We started out meeting at an open table, which with Community Connected, supporting a lady who was homeless and got her stable, and met weekly for almost a year to make that happen. And that's how we met. And since then, all kinds of things have happened where they've gotten engaged. Now Rob is a board member. We're
Probably our youngest board member at this point.
maybe.
Yeah.
But,
Yep.
yeah, so that's part of the cool piece.
I'm getting older every day. So,
And through their church and we've done some care portal stuff, and we've done, Cassie works for Vision 30 Partners. We have all kinds of things we could talk about today, but we like to start out by hearing a little bit from each of you, a little bit of your story and your why as to why Vision 30 and the things that we do with Patrick Henry Family Services resonate with you and why you think those things are important. So who wants to start?
cool factor cast first.
Oh, I like that introduction. Well,
Also, happy birthday, Claudia.
yeah.
Thank you.
To tell you a little bit about how we got connected here, like you said, it was through Open Table, and then to go kind of a step back from there, when I was an undergrad, I was studying child development, and then through grad school and kind of early career, jumped into doing some nonprofit work with a friend who was trying to get a bunch of different nonprofit groups connected in the area, and a lot of it had to do around art classes and kind of some gaps in after-school programs. And so got super involved with that, and kind of we had these really great people who would come in from different churches or nonprofits and speak to how to kind of shore up some of the things in the programming that just kind of needed better supervision. And so through that, kind of went into a deep dive of, hey, what are good outcomes for communities? And so this is as I'm nearing professional work and started going into a field where I was working with a lot of nonprofits and learned about asset-based community development. And it just blew my mind. I thought, man, this makes sense. And so around that time, probably towards kind of the end of that deep dive of a few years, we got connected with this Open Table program. And Claudia, you're the master recruiter. And so
It's hard to say no. Isn't
it's
it?
very hard. I mean, she just stays right there with you. So you
Is
got
that
us
like
connected.
you saying that I'm really naggy?
She's called you a master recruiter.
No,
Stick with
this
that.
was
Stick
all
with that.
positive.
Stick
Okay,
with
This
that.
was
Just
all
checking.
positive.
Because I'm kind of relentless and annoying, but
Well, it works in your favor, and therefore it works in other people's favor. So we'll give it to you. But yeah, that was kind of how we got connected. I saw Community Connected and the different things that were produced through specifically Care Portal as being a really great manifestation of asset-based community development and bringing together some different groups. And so it just made total sense why this would be a great way for believers, like myself and my husband, but also people who have done a little research and been in the field a little bit more than just like, hey, let's throw some money in an offering plate and just kind of see what happens, or let's hand out some, whatever on the street and just see what happens. So this was really
and of course
special
for
to
me,
us.
anybody who geeks out on asset-based community development is like my kind of people, right?
Yeah.
So,
You
and
guys
so
are saying
we-
asset,
Asset.
Yes.
not
Asset.
acid.
I know.
Asset.
not
I-
acid
that-
and not
asset.
anything else that
Or
starts
another
with
That's a
word.
good point.
Yes.
Yeah. You throw a couple of
Asset.
those names around in the field and you're like, oh man, it's exciting.
How about you, Rob?
There's a couple of angles I can go from it, but I'll just start with specifically looking at it from the local church perspective. First time going through, like, having these conversations definitely like sparked a lot there, but first time going through like the Care Portal listings and reading some of those out, it's almost exactly what a church is hoping to achieve in terms of like having impact. It's like, man, if we could be meeting these sorts of needs regularly, it would be amazing. And it's like no one is running into those needs on a daily basis within the context of church, especially here in Lynchburg. You're not seeing those sorts of situations often. But there's, if you're genuine about being in the church, you're going to have desires to be meeting needs like that, but they're often not in the congregation. And then when you see it listed out, almost like a Facebook page where it's like post after post, and you read those, your heart is automatically breaking. You're seeing the pain and you're seeing the need, you're seeing those things there, and then the opportunity is here, and it's that accessible just to get involved. To me, it made too much sense, it still makes too much sense for us to begin involved with. And so seeing those needs just so readily like available for you to just meet, it's something that I definitely think we need to be a part of. And so if meeting those needs is going to accomplish that Vision 30, and we can have that that audacious goal of eliminating the need for foster care in Central Virginia by meeting needs like that, to me, like the local church needs to be a part of that. And specifically the local church, that makes a lot of sense, but also like anybody who embraces the reconciliation, the ministry that they've been given, needs to be involved with something like that. And this just makes it I don't want to use the word convenience because it's a weird word, but it does make it convenient, which should allow a lot of people to experiment with this.
Now you've found a way to make Care Portal a part of your responsibility at Liberty. Say a little bit about what you do there and how Care Portal is having another kind of impact on a different group of people.
Yes, sir. So for the last about just under 5 years, what started as like a side project from the job I had at Liberty became now the main focus, which is to develop spiritual development avenues for commuter students, which there's, the numbers will shift, but it's from 7,000 to 8,000 commuter students.
Wow.
Which that means like all these apartments going up, like, you know what I mean? It's to service that population. If you've ever had any experience with Liberty, which a lot of people, listening to this maybe have, that there's robust spiritual development opportunities for somebody who's a student at Liberty. Specifically those who live like within the dorms, that proximity provides unbelievable opportunity for you to be evangelized if that's where you're at, discipled, have community, have friendships develop, have so many different things. And for commuter students, once you move off, you can automatically feel quite disconnected from that. And so that's been the case for a long time. And, there's been attempts to like deal with that. But we've been building something that we're praying that for the long term really eradicates in a lot of ways that we've been talking about this, that disconnect. And so with that being the case, we've now been able to build a team currently of about 30 commuter shepherds is what we call them. And these guys do the work of building just communities with commuter students. So And like on campus, these guys get a list of people who live within their halls and say, these are your guys. Knock on their door, go Claudio on them and be insistent on getting them there. Like, pray for them, bring them in, you know what I mean? Like do that sort of a thing. But it's like, they're right there. You see them every day. These guys have to like identify who these commuter students are, identify where that desire is within commuter students, begin to invite them into relationship and invest in those relationships, and then hope to see that grow. And so it's something that, we always talk about it. It's like leaving a job at Google if you work on campus, because you have so much structure around you. It's a proven product. We all throw money at it every day, whether we are aware of it or not. If you've ever seen anything about those types of offices, like there's a nap pod you can like sleep in during lunch or something. There's a gym in the building and all that. It's leaving that to come to the garage to build something that eventually one day could be that. But it's going to be 30 people around the table, and if a third of us kind of go to sleep, we don't exist the next year. And so it's that type of environment. And since that environment wasn't challenging enough, we decided to include what it looks like to actually put some of this to practice, being Care Portal being the example of that. And so we decided to kind of pilot that. It took us a while to kind of get it going, but it's going now. Yeah. And even this weekend, they're going to be meeting a need. Awesome. And we've been able to see just a lot of exposure for students to what these needs are, as well as like what it looks like to meet those, and not wait until you've graduated and that calling is all lined up and the job is there, but specifically to jump into that now and get some of the competencies that's going to come from that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
There's some themes there, Claudio. The need for community, the power of community, but community needs to have meaningful relationships, needs to have a purpose outside of themselves as a community. And I hear some of those themes.
Yeah, and I think that's my current soapbox is that
Let's hear it.
My current soapbox is that the church has become way too internally focused, and that we're missing out what the point of the whole thing is. And if we're not making a difference in our community, if we're not stepping out of our comfort zone, if we're not doing that, then the rewards that we're looking for are out there, and we're so busy making sure we take care of our parishioners, that we have good music, that we have good programs for kids, that we have, whatever it is churches are focused on. But, Jesus didn't stay in the church when he was here. He was with the broken, the hurting, the marginalized. And when we go with him there is when we see the really cool stuff happen. And I think that whole idea of community can't just be for us, right? It needs to have a greater purpose, and it needs to be doing the things that Jesus would do with the people that he would do them with. And that's where the blessing comes. When you do stuff that's too hard for you, you do stuff that takes you out of your comfort zone. If you only do the things you can handle on your own, God doesn't have to do anything. And so you don't see cool stuff. So that's it's not a current soapbox. I've been saying it for years, but lately it's been I think COVID and all that happened with it really made the church and people's families very inward focused. Just, can I get through the day? And if I can do that, then I'm fine. But recent book my husband's been reading used the phrase compassion-driven change makers like Jesus. That's what the church is called to be.
That's a heck of a title.
Isn't it?
It's like 4 words, 5 words, straight
It's
up.
not the title of the book either. It was just a phrase in it. But
Oh.
Jesus was a compassion-driven change maker. And that's what we need to be, because there's so much in our world that needs to be changed. So I love it that you guys as shepherds are realizing that it's not just enough to build Christian communities, right? It's not just enough for all of us to feel good to be together and pray for each other and support each other, because God didn't have a plan B for how to take care of the world, right? It was us being his hands and feet, us being his body. And if we don't do what we're supposed to do, it doesn't get done. So you guys, I mean, you know that. But maybe you don't know that, so I had to tell you.
That's right.
But I was hoping like you were going to go back a little bit farther, like jumping in right into the topic of, like, obviously you guys met somewhere, right? Did you meet at school?
Oh, like how we met each other?
Oh, that's where you want to go.
Or
Yeah.
even back farther. Where are you even in this country, Rob? Like,
Why
let's
am
go
I in
back
this
to that.
country? Oh, gosh.
I
I don't have that kind of time.
Because I think that's a cool story.
All right, I'll talk about that a little bit here. So I'm from Brazil originally. So the country of Brazil, South America, largest country in that area. just about as big as the United States is. We left there. So my dad left there because he was a pastor, and ended up coming to be a part of a church in South Florida for Brazilians, so Portuguese-speaking Brazilians in South Florida. And so that's a very short.
Have him say something in Portuguese.
That's the very short.
That would be super cool.
Beleza. All right.
Well, a little more than that.
All right, we'll get around to it, but because I'm trying to figure out how to put this story this close. But yeah, so my dad's been a pastor in Brazil, and essentially ran into to a former seminary roommate of his who was in Florida and had planted a church, and he said, "Come check it out. I want you to come be a part of this." And so, long story short, we up and left and did that. But now he's planted another church there and has been doing that work for a long time. And that's how we got to the United States. And it's always been in South Florida. I went to college in South Florida and then transferred to Liberty. Just right after my freshman year. And while here, through different avenues, found the same type of calling that we're talking about here in terms of like, okay, so to be a Christian looks a lot different than just sitting around circles and kind of taking care of each other in that specific way. It also looks like being active on mission for Christ wherever it is that you are. And so if that was the case, then it led me to different apartments. And so I took a trip my senior year to Philadelphia. It was a free trip, which is why I signed up for it at first. And then there I was able to kind of like really hear for the first time things like church planting. Like even though we had planted a church, but that was never a language I was accustomed to. Seeing that and seeing like, okay, this is what it looks like to live on mission. And there was the department on campus at the time that was called the Center for Ministry Training that hosted that trip. So I came in for an interview at that trip. And when I came in for an interview for that trip, that's when I met Cass for the first time because she worked at that department. So she was getting a paycheck. I was like a hustling, college student. She was also a college student, but already getting a paycheck. So overachiever, cool factor here. Big time. Me, I was over there as a free trip, right? So here we are. I show up. That's where I meet her for the first time. But like I said, I went on that trip and like those experiences really kind of resonated with me. And I was like, why didn't I know that this was even like a part of Liberty in the first place? So I came back there after the trip and said, look, I need an internship. I would like for it to be here, and like these are my skill sets. I was doing graphic design, marketing, and those sorts of things. And I say it'd be great if it was in this field, but if I gotta just like be here to sweep the floors, I just want to be a part of it. And so that turned into an actual internship that turned into a scholarship position that eventually turned into a job. Eventually, they started paying me. And now it's turned, that department has evolved into what is the Office of Spiritual Development in LU Shepherd. But that's when I met her. During the scholarship years of that is when we actually got to really get to know each other. We're friends for a long time. Ended up dating without a lot of people knowing for a while there, just to kind of get our ducks in the row. And then like it was like, all right, here we are. And then, about a couple of years later, we're married. Beautiful baby and another one on the way. That is as short as I can make it. If you want to add better details.
Yeah, I think that what I would add is just the nature of those trips, I think, really formed our philosophy around ministry. So I think all the mission trips or different things I had been a part of preceding those jobs and going on those trips, and then eventually both of us were leading those trips for other students. It was things that you would go into a community and you'd like kind of paint a church, or you would run a VBS, and I think there's value in those things and they're good. The nature of those trips were completely different, and it was intentional. We would make sure that the experiences that we were having, the students were having, were things that were natural occurring things in that community already. So we would intentionally seek out small church plants that were very community-based, very driven in that way to do that work And there was intention behind that. I remember, one of my trips, it wasn't the Philadelphia trip he was describing. I kind of got in the habit of, over the couple of years, leading a regular trip to Philadelphia. And we're literally walking streets with the church planter when the kids would get out of school, and we were kind of bouncing between their after-school programs and the community centers for the elderly in that community. So things that are already happening. We're not recreating the wheel. We're teaching students who are believers to integrate into their communities for the purpose of doing good for others and sharing the gospel. And that really changed the philosophy, I feel like, of a lot of those students that participated in that. It really challenged this, what you were talking about, this like, hey, let's just kind of build internally, and if some good things happen, that's one great aspect of our program, but it's not the central focus. I think we counted at one point 4 or 5 churches launched just from people who had worked at that department over the years that it was created. I mean, this thing just really incubated stuff. And so we would get back from those trips, and we would usually be on different ones. I don't think we ever led a trip together, but we'd get back and we'd be like, why are we not doing this on the days that we're not on these trips? And almost just this sense of urgency to make sure that we have fully integrated that philosophy into our lives and are replicating that in our daily practices. And so he started coming along to some of these art classes that we were teaching in neighborhoods. And, I think those things shored up and evolved into things that were a lot more just healthy and aligned with other things going on in the community. But it changed, I think, the way that we saw ministry to not be an activity, but to be this continuous lifestyle. And I think it put in us an urgency that we were really never able to put out. And I think it's the Holy Spirit saying, like, you have to seek this out. Like, it doesn't just fall in your lap. And great when it does, and please respond when it does. But there is this act of self that comes from the urgency of the Holy Spirit to find where you fit into that and why.
I love that.
I do too. So, do you consider yourself a pastor? Because you come from a pastor's background, and when you talk about shepherding, is that not the pastor?
I think there's probably a right answer to this question.
But you're going to give me the wrong answer.
I mean, the answer is probably yes. Like you're
Yes.
talking about shepherding and all those different things. Do I view myself as a pastor? Like, do I have people call me Pastor Rob and stuff like that? No. And I don't think through those lenses because, you know what I mean? What I'm trying to teach the students and everybody else that I'm around is that, like, that title isn't necessary. It's not a prerequisite for actually doing the ministry.
Absolutely.
Therefore, it's not something I adhere to myself. But to answer that question, I probably the answer is yes. Like, shepherding and pastoring, those sorts of things is there. But again, not having that title be something that's like, if you don't have that, or if you're not working towards that, you're not really in ministry. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because we're taking terms that we've kind of put in boxes to fit this organizational concept of church, but you're living it out. Do you consider yourself a missionary? I mean, you're describing mission work. You're describing the heart of mission as a lifestyle. Does that make you a missionary?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with Rob. I think we're just so like, we just never know what to do with the semantics of it all. Yeah. But I think one phrase that we have thrown around in relationship and in our family, and it's life on mission. Like, if your life is not geared and centered around, the ministry of Christ, then what are you actually pursuing? What are you actually living out? What actually is Christianity to you? And that's very important to us. And we get, schooled on it all the time by people like Claudia who are like, hey, here's the next step in that and challenge. And, ultimately we're grateful for that type of challenge. But I don't know. I've never used the terminology that way.
What's the saying? Millennials don't like labels?
That's what it is. Yeah. That's what you're really.
I guess it holds true. And by the way, today being Claudia's birthday, I want to speak on behalf of all millennials and make you an honorary millennial, because I know that's all you want in life.
To be an honorary millennial.
Because I think she is a millennial, like,
that's one Enneagram
at heart
line
and
to
everything,
another.
straight up. So, speaking on behalf of all millennials worldwide, welcome.
Well, thank you, Rob. I'm really not sure that has ever been a dream.
It has.
A life goal, yeah.
So
Very
we only have a
millennial
few more
of you.
minutes, and we could be talking like for another 2 hours. But we didn't even touch on Hill City. We didn't touch on Impact. But I really think that the last 5
Shout
minutes.
out to Hill City.
Yeah, shout out to Hill City.
Because definitely from what she was talking about, Hill City was birthed out of, like,
That was
same
one of the
thing.
churches that came
for
out
sure.
of that.
So I love your intentionality, but I want to if we could title your Care Portal story, "Don't Wear Flip Flops When You Go Into the Hood," I would love to hear that story. Is such a great story. I'd love to end that way if that's okay with you, because I think that you guys, just the insight that you had from that is so powerful. 5 minutes though.
Okay, let's see how we tell this thing. So, again, Care Portal requests come through. You read those; they're heartbreaking, but there's a lot of them, right? And so, at some point, you're like, man, like, it's here, and I'm really glad that someone's gonna take that one, right? And so, this was one that Cass, I believe she had, like, and you can tell it. You had seen the request that they asked for a baby gate, and we happened to have an extra one.
Yeah.
Something like that. And then when she reached out about it, it's like, yeah, we'll take the baby gate, but like, as you guys know, it's never the first time you schedule something that it happens. You know what I mean? The third, fourth time where it's like, hey, schedule's changed or whatever. It didn't line up, and we took a week-long trip away. So when we got back, she's like, still got the baby gate. Do you need it? And the lady said, we don't need the baby gate anymore. We got that. They also delivered a washer and dryer, but we needed to go downstairs. And like, if you guys could help with that, that'd be great. And so, Cass was like, oh, yeah, of course. And then I come back home from work a couple days later or that day. And she's like, hey, can we knock this thing out really fast? Like, she needs to just move something. And I'm like, to be honest, I don't want to do that today. You know what I mean? Like, but I'll say this: if you can connect with her and she says that it can happen today and it's for sure, we'll get in the car and go. And I was like, all right, no problem. And then she texts like, yeah, we're going. Like, it's happening. Put the stroller in the car, do the whole thing. So I'm like, yeah, I'm just sitting at home, coming from work. I, had some shorts on and some flip-flops, as I usually do. And she's like, let's go. So, yeah, let's get in the car. And my mind is in 40 other places, and I wasn't thinking at all. And then we pull up, and then I immediately realized that flip-flops were not the right attire for this at all. Like, I should have not been wearing flip-flops for this. Because I also didn't, put two and two together that I'm moving a washer and dryer from upstairs to downstairs. And that's not nothing. You know what I mean? It seems like nothing when we're talking about it, but in the actual doing of it was crazy. So it was one of those things we had to pull it outside, walk through the mud, you know what I mean? Slide this thing in, and it's, it's downhill to the basement and things like that. And so what was really cool about this experience, though, is like, as soon as we pulled up to the house, the kids came out, and one of top 5 greatest kids I've met in any circumstance like this at all. Ready to go. Couldn't be older than there's no way he's 12. He's somewhere below that. But was ready to go. And he's like, hey, I'll help you out. And we start going. So it's like, hey, it's me and you, buddy. Cass actually had the baby with her. So we pull up with the baby. I'm in flip-flops. We're doing this thing. And so it's him and I believe 3 or 4 more kids there, single mom. And we're dealing kind of with the situation. And, as we're we brought a dolly, we put the thing in a dolly and start rolling downhill in my flip-flops in the dirt, in the mud. So we're sliding that thing. So at one point the washer, the lid for it just swings open, and you know how those things can be, quite strong. Right in my forehead. The kid at that point says, hey, I'll get you some water after we're done with this, man. I was like, that was the greatest thing you could have said to me. Really, that was really cool. So we're doing this thing, and then I just remember being there and thinking, man, I didn't think this through at all. But also it was one of those things that I guess I hadn't been, I hadn't met a need physically for a while up until that point, and it was all coming back to me. It's the urgency of this, what the realities are, and things like that. And I remember thinking, man, I don't think these kids should be here. But in this situation, something here needs to improve, and hopefully this is a step towards that. But we were dealing, with different things besides just the washer and dryer, removing trash and things like that out of the way. And it was one of those times where it's if this is happening, we need to be involved in this. So I remember leaving there and saying, I'm calling up Hill City right now. I'm calling up James, Pastor James. I'm calling my team. Today, we got to make something happen here because that urgency is there. And the flip-flops was definitely an example of it's gonna if you're gonna get engaged in this sort of a thing, don't be wearing flip flops. You know what I mean? Put your boots on and let's get to work. Type
Come
of a thing.
prepared.
And I think
Anything you want to like add to that story? Because I know that was like my anecdote of it.
We actually need to wrap up. I mean, we could have these
Yeah.
guys on back because there's so
plenty
much
more to
there.
talk about.
There's so much more to talk about.
But I think that the when you first told me that story, the idea of our worlds are so different that we don't even think about it, right? And just not even thinking, hey, if I'm going to go, maybe flip flops on it, because our worlds are so different. And then all of a sudden you're there, you're in the environment, you're like, man, I didn't even think about that, right? And I think those experiences change us just when we realize how disconnected we can get if we don't have our vision outside of our little world.
Yeah. And so we need to think about Care Portal and the other ministries we have at Patrick Henry. It's as much about the church as it is about those that we're serving. It's making us better people, making us better servants, making us better disciples, right?
Making us compassion-driven change makers like
Exactly
Jesus.
right. Nice way to close it up. Birthday girl.
Thanks.
Hey, thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you next Thursday on Community Connection.
Nobody gets to choose their family. If a person is fortunate enough to be born into a healthy family, then life can be much like floating down a smooth, gentle river in the summertime. But an unhealthy family is like a dangerous river, filled with rocks, debris, and fast-moving water. This river swiftly leads to the steep waterfall of adulthood, tragically forming a new river of dysfunction. Even if you aren't born into an unhealthy river, there are many streams that cause a person to get there. But there is only one way to get out, and that is through a meaningful relationship. Across our region, there are many agencies, churches, and families who are devoted to helping children escape from unhealthy rivers. Some feel their role is to wade in and rescue children. They foster, adopt, or provide safe families. Others stand by the river and support the rescuers by providing what they need. Still, others are upstream and stand in the gap to keep children from ending up in the negative situations. At Patrick Henry Family Services, we see ourselves as having an additional role. We are running up and down the shores of the unhealthy river, screaming, "Can't you see the children in the water? You have to do something." Vision 30 is a 10-year initiative. By 2030, we envision a region where all children are safe in their own family, or with caregivers who are supported by a local faith community. So, where do you stand at the river? Are you upstream, keeping families together and strong by standing in the gap? Are you in the river, directly impacting children? Are you on the shore, providing support for the brave folks who have entered the river? Or are you just passing by without noticing? No matter who you are, come down to the river with us. Let us help you find your place. Not only will lives be changed, but you will never be the same.